Welcome, everyone. This is Brian Piper with the Where Are They Now? The Industry Awards Finalist podcast. As always, my co host Elias is with me, and we are back with episode 6.
I lost count.
I lost count. I think it's episode 5 or 6. We're right in there. How you been?
Good. Working hard, hardly working. Combination of the both.
Yeah.
Getting close to Knowledge Fest Orlando, so things always get busy.
Yeah, my last few weeks have been crazy hectic. I'm behind on getting other podcasts loaded up because I'm way behind on everything. And then this week just turned into a cluster trying to get stuff ready for Orlando. So we're just scrambling kind of a little bit, but we're getting this one in. I'm super excited. I've been excited for this one for like several weeks.
for a few weeks, and you're right. It's right before we get even busier next week, but it's exciting. We've been talking about our guest for tonight for a while.
Yeah, this one was a big one, man.
I'm curious to extract all the history and fun facts and knowledge that he's going to share with us tonight.
I talking to him on the phone and talking to him through text a little bit. It's almost like meeting a rock star. Like it's
from 1999,
from the 90s, right?
Like, I just threw 1999, just to
yeah, sure, let's party like Prince. But it's look at so I learned about his Instagram when we first kind of started getting into this, and Ada talked to me about, hey, go check out his Instagram, you got to look at it. And so I went and stalked his Instagram for a few days. Man, the level of execution that this guy works on as a hobbyist, and it's not car stereo, guys. We're not talking car stereo hobbyist. This guy is doing stuff with cars that's just insane. And the level of execution, it makes me tingle. It makes me tingle. Like, super excited to go, oh, whoa, I got to see what he's doing next. Like, you couldn't stop looking.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So, as we had to kind of postpone recording one day because, things were hectic for too many of us. But here we are. And, you ready?
I'm ready. I think our guest tonight is going to be a fun one, and a lot of our followers are going to really get a different perspective of where are they now.
Yes.
So this is kind of a different twist this go around. So
this is a huge twist, I think. Yeah. So without too much further delay, I would like to welcome the 1998 and 99 top 12 finalist, Chuck Hamly, to our studio.
Thanks, guys.
Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you. It's quite a lead in.
Well, you got to build a little bit of excitement, I think. But for us, we knew ahead of time where we were going with this. And getting a chance to learn and see what you do nowadays, it just makes this conversation all the much more interesting.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and thanks for taking the time. This is,
sure,
like I've said before, Brian and I were excited, and this is what gets us going. This is what it's all about for us. So thank you for taking the time.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. We really appreciate you coming on with us. And it's, again, it's we've talked about this quite a bit of our hope is to find as many of the former and original installer of the year winners. And we're not talking to just installer of the year through Where Are They Now. We talk to retailers. We have newer categories like, Elias was a sales pro of the year. Mine was trusted tech of the year. And we have all of those people to talk to as well. And we talk to some of the retailers that we know, and we're still trying to find some guys that are worth talking to, or they're not that they're worth talking to, I guess that they're able to talk to us from back in the day, right? Because some of them aren't around anymore, whether their business is gone and we just don't know where to find them or whatever the case may be. But install wise, that's my background. So like when I find an installer that we're talking to, I get really excited. I haven't not had one I'm excited about so far. So, but I guess that helps because I get to pick them.
At the core, at the core of what our industry is, I mean, that's kind of like the pinnacle coveted position if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be in the Bay. Everybody wants to build some cool stuff.
Right.
Do some cool stuff, wire some cool stuff.
Yeah. I mean, very few people ever got into car stereo to just sell it and just install car alarms, right?
Right.
Most of us got into it because we wanted to build really cool stuff. So, so tell us a little bit about you, Chuck. Tell us, where you're at now, what you do.
Well, these days I'm still living in the same area where I was an installer, and I still have a lot of the same friends. And I'm working for I have a couple of jobs now. Right after car stereo, I had a short stint at a hot rod shop building hot rods because that's something I like to do. You guys figured that out pretty easily. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I that didn't last. That only lasted a matter of months. I went from there into the restoration business, automotive restoration and collection management business. And I did that for about 10 years. And I worked in a shop, big shop with 26 guys. And we did a lot of very high end. So vintage Ferrari, vintage Lamborghini. We went to Pebble Beach every year. We went to Quail every year. We went to, some of these other shows for that type of car.
Right.
And I did collection management for Mr. DuPont. Mr. Marriott as a client. We managed his collection, and I got to see a lot of really cool cars. I got to meet a lot of famous people and do some fun stuff. And I got to drive. The stuff that I was able to drive during that decade was amazing and great time. And and when that came to a close, I was helping a friend of mine out with a wheel repair company, and he had just lost his business partner, who was the technical end of this. And they had a patented piece of equipment and procedure for repairing wheels on cars. And he had about 12 or 16 vans. And he said, I need some help, even if you can only help me a couple days a week just to keep the equipment going and keep the thing going and help me with the supplies for the guys and stuff. So I went on to do that with him for about 5 years full time and grew the company to about 60 vans.
Wow.
And we basically redesigned his piece of equipment so he could scale the company and make it easier. So if you had a guy in Florida, you could ship him a repair part and he could fix the machine himself, or he could ship part of it back to you.
Wow.
So we re-engineered it. We created it, broke it into a couple of pieces so it was more manageable. One of the pieces fits in a Pelican case and you can ship it overnight if you have to. And I left him just before COVID to do some other stuff that I'm still doing right now. And I'm back working for him part-time, and he's up to, I think we at 97 vans now in 16 states.
Wow.
Yeah. He's doing a great job.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So besides that, I have a small business with a couple of buddies that we buy and sell cars. So we have a dealership license, but not really a dealership. So we've sold a couple cars on Bring a Trailer. We've bought some stuff from local folks and flipped it to on our website. We've even, I was buying cars for people that they just say, hey, I need a car for my wife. She wants this kind of car. So
like a brokerage kind of thing?
Pardon me?
Like a brokerage kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of like a brokerage, but even simpler than that. I would just go I'd find the car, I'd make the deal, I'd get a buyer's order sent to the buyers, and they pay me for my services, and they go pick the car up.
Good. Good.
So that's where I am now.
Nice.
Still in the car industry.
Still, it's the wheel repair industry now, and I don't actually know how to repair a wheel. I've never done it, but I certainly know what goes on the back side of it. So the operation side's for a company with 100 vans on the road is quite an operation.
Oh, yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. Yeah. But you're still, like many of us, you're still just a boy playing with cars.
Yeah, that's since I was 15 years old. I've had hot rods and been modifying cars, and I was installing stereos and my own stuff, obviously, before I think everybody did that before they became an installer.
Right.
And,
yeah.
I ended up in retail when I was in college, right after high school. So this is 1986 when I was started in business, and I was selling home stereo and car stereo in a local mall, Springfield Mall in Virginia here. And there was a company called Audio Associates, and they had a connection with a car stereo shop not far away. And they had car stereo on display. And I had bought my first Alpine 2-knob radio, 2-shaft radio from them in 1984, I think it was, my cassette deck and my powered EQ. And to work for those guys in that place and sell that stuff was great fun. And an opportunity came up to be the assistant manager at the car stereo shop that was nearby. So I jumped on it to stay in the car, get closer to cars.
Yeah.
And ended up as the assistant manager there.
So how did you end up in an install bay?
Well, I as the assistant manager, you're trying to make things move. You're the guy trying to motivate everybody. And there was a day when a car came in. It was a brand new at the time Lamborghini Halpa, which was their V8. They didn't make that many of those. That came into the shop, and everybody was afraid to work on it. And I said, "Hey, it's just a car. Come on, let's." So I said, "Come on, let's go do it." So I went out there with them and did the install with one of the guys, and ended up enjoying myself a lot more in the bay than I did on the sales floor.
Nice.
And everything went great. And next thing you know, I was in the bay permanently for the next 20 years.
That's amazing. Those are the craziest things. It's interesting hearing stories of how guys ended up, how you got into the bay or how you got into the shop at all, So yeah, it's just kind of falls in your lap sometimes.
It just, it just happened, and it was fun. And I got to use skills I had already and work with the guys, because it always looked, like you said, always looked like fun.
Right.
I just got the chance to try it.
Yeah.
So you got your little taste of getting into the install bay then. Is that what segued into more of a full-time installer position?
Yeah, that immediately turned into a full-time installer position. Yeah, and I became the shop manager, and then I became the company installation manager. I think at the time that company had 4 or 6 install bays. I don't really remember. Okay. And I was with them for 7 years, and they merged with another local company, and I wasn't all that happy with the merger and the way things were going in the management. And then right about that time, I got a call from the other local high-end home stereo company, and it was somebody that I knew that used to work with us, and said, "Hey, we're going to start car stereo. We're a home audio company." It was all high-end, so they sold Mark Levinson and all the stuff Perot stuff you rarely even see anywhere. And he said, "We want to do car stereo. We want you to come work with us." And I said, "That sounds great." So I went over there, and they hired me as the company installation manager there, and we set up all the install shops around the local area. I think we did 6 install shops. They had 10 stores or 12 stores in the end.
Was this Meyer Emco?
This was Meyer Emco, yeah.
Okay.
I was with them for 14 years.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I only ever had 2 installing jobs. And the Meyer Emco one was great because we had a huge install bay with air conditioning, and I had a separate wood shop, and it just kind of worked out that way. The building that they were renting had this extra space in it, and I could fit, 6 or 8 cars in the bay, and
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was a nice big shop. It was a good time, and this area has a lot of money,
right?
And a lot of exotic cars, and Meyer Emco was where those guys went to buy their home stereo. And as soon as Meyer Emco started selling car stereo, There
all
were
over with, right?
Porsches and Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and high-end Mercedes and BMWs coming out of our ears every day.
Yeah. Get used to, kind of get accustomed to what it's like to work on those cars every single day, and then it's kind of funny because I worked for a shop for a while that was kind of that way, where that's what we did. Is it was almost always exotics.
Yeah.
And then you'd have like a Cadillac come in and you're like, this piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's an $80,000 Cadillac, but it's still a POS, right?
Yeah, we still had our share of Hondas and Toyotas and so forth, but it was a surprising number of higher end cars in the area.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So I got to ask a follow-up question to, excuse me, to what I just asked you. So being an installer in that era, what was it like, participating, in the top 12 awards or leading up to the awards?
Yeah, it was very different back then. We didn't have any social media. There was no, we didn't have websites. There was no, everything was word of mouth. Everything was in a magazine. You voted with the card that came in the Mobile Electronic Specialist magazine. And I think, I was really fortunate that we had a good sized company, and I was friendly with all the reps. And when it came time to vote, I, obviously got enough votes to, it was all, what am I trying to say? It was all people in the industry. Nobody on the outside even, had even heard of it or knew what was going on. So there was nobody else could vote for you but your peers. So it was always, I felt like it was a big compliment to get enough votes to hit these highs. It was great.
You have to kind of think about that. The only way you got recognition back then was if you made it in a magazine or you knew enough people around you.
Yeah.
I traveled to car audio competitions all over the place in the mid and late 90s. I lived in New Mexico and at the time, and I remember like me and my buddies going, okay, where can we go? Okay, Mark Eldridge is there, and Gary Biggs is there, and Chad Clodner's playing or competing at this event, or we would call places to go see what these guys were doing. And it wasn't necessarily on the competition side for me. I wanted to go see if I could look at what they did and in my brain reverse engineer something they built.
Right.
Just by looking at it. Or you get the magazines and you're sitting there reading installs on, what everybody did. That's how we learned about all these guys across the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's before all the social media and internet, blow up.
Right.
So it's different.
Very much so.
Exciting. It's exciting from like, just getting that compliment, like you said, from maybe, one rep or two reps or maybe all the reps, that's probably a lot more touching and meaningful, to get that nod, to get that thumbs up,
Yeah, to get the nod for something like that was definitely meant a lot.
Yeah.
So
it's exciting.
So you mentioned this a minute ago. We talking about how you ended up in the Bay was you had to go work on this Lamborghini that nobody wanted to touch. So I had this question I was going to ask, but we'll touch on it a little bit more. So to describe what your first professional install was like. I mean, obviously it was a Lamborghini, but what was, tell us a little more about how did you feel? What did it? Do you remember what it was?
I remember everything. It was ADS 320i's. It was an ADS PS5. It was I don't remember which head unit. It would have been an Alpine head unit almost for sure at that point. But I don't remember. There was no subs. It was a pair of speakers and an amp. So there was I had to do things that I'd never done. I'd never worked on a car like that before. I'd worked on my Jeep or I'm on one of my hot rods, my old Pontiacs or something like that. But, a lot of metric tools, and I didn't really have much in the way. I was digging through everybody else's toolboxes, realizing I better restock my own toolbox if I'm going to do this. And a little nervous, and it took a long time because I didn't know, how do I take this door apart to get the speaker in, or I don't even think it was in the door. I think it was in the rear pillar. And anyway, I didn't know how to get anything apart, and the construction was very foreign to me because it was all hand built as opposed to assembly built like all the cars in America.
Right.
Everything else I ever touched. So,
I think back to, so I started my first official job was in 1985. I worked for a shop here in Corpus where I live now. But in the 90s, 80s, 90s, like we have all these things now that make install very easy. And you've got, you've got 3/4 inch tweeters and things like that. Like for the guys that don't go back this far, like a tweeter, the tweeter itself might be 1 inch. The plate's 3 inches.
Yeah.
The magnet on the back's 2.5.
Oh yeah.
Right? You didn't have neo magnets and all of that.
Neos. Yeah, that was
chromium and magne and ferrite and
right.
That was it. Like everything was huge,
and the amplifiers.
The amplifiers were huge, and there was always engine noise.
Yeah. I mean, ADS was like one of the small amplifiers. Their plate amplifiers were.
Yeah.
It was just crazy, But yeah, everything was huge back then compared to nowadays.
Yeah, including the radios with the pull-out cages behind them. the big giant plug that was in the back, so the whole thing was 2 inches deeper than it really needed to be.
Yeah. And then you pull your radio out, and you either carried it around by the handle, or you had the Merce that it went in, and you slung it over your shoulder across. Right? You were cool then because you had to have. If you had an Alpine one, you had to have the Alpine pull-out sleeve
bag.
Merce.
You had to have the bag, yeah.
Yeah, because you weren't cool if you had an Alpine, but you didn't have the Merce that said Alpine, then it didn't matter what you had, right? Because
that's right.
Everybody wanted Alpine, right? It was
people actually wore those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dude, you go to we would go to the mall and like everybody. And the guys that had Alpine on their Merce, that's what I call them. They're just a bag that was like this, and it held the radio in it.
It was a din-sized bag.
Yeah, basically. But we used to just call them Merces just to screw with people. But if the guy had Alpine embroidered on his bag, you would, oh my God, cool. He's cool. And but that was the thing when we were kids. So,
So let's sidetrack it a little bit. How much after pull-out radio did detachable faceplates come out?
It wasn't that long. It was only a few years. What, 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah, maybe? 4 or 5 years. Because I think so. Like you kind of really saw the pull-out wind down around like 94, 95,
something like that.
Yeah. And then detachable face kind of came around. Well, shoot,
detachable face seems a lot easier.
God, I think detachable face we even saw in like. So I think pullouts probably started phasing out sooner than that.
Yeah,
they probably like 92, 93, and then pullouts were kind of like 95, 96.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And then you had like the Kenwood and the Sonys that the face would flip over.
Yeah.
I remember seeing
the mask, Sony mask, and I think
Alpine had one that slid inside.
Yeah, Alpines folded out and slid back inside. Yeah, the people got really the manufacturers got really ingenious with some of that stuff. The only problem you had back then with some of that motorized stuff is it was motorized.
Yeah,
and if it broke, which not a lot of thought went into it going in a car, that most likely was slammed, and if it had suspension, it wasn't much,
right?
Or mini trucks or any of that stuff, or the hydraulic systems and all that, and these things getting slammed around, they would break all the time. But all of those days, it's kind of crazy. So moving past the first install, tell us about your favorite.
Favorite install. Wow.
Favorite install.
You know,
that's a hard one sometimes.
It is a hard one because there's some of the stuff you do different customers or different installs, right? One guy might want a lot of custom work, but he doesn't want a big bang-in stereo. One guy might want a competition system that has even more fancy cosmetic work. And one guy might just want a lot of subs and super loud. So, you know, I would tell you my favorite install is my own car. It's this 1970 Pontiac GTO that I've owned since 1985, and I still own it, and it still looks like it did. It was on the cover of Car Audio and Electronics at one point.
Nice.
And and it's been some other magazines, but that was a fun one. And I did that in conjunction with Boston Acoustics. I had a very good relationship with those guys. And they had, when they first came out with the Pro Series, we took the car, it was almost finished. I wasn't quite finished with the car, but we trailered the car up to Boston where they were doing photo shoots for the new Pro line. And they had an SLA prototype, which was basically kind of like a 3D printed, but SLAs in a fluid, cured with a laser. And that was super high tech back then. I mean, this is
right. Yeah.
This is, I don't even remember what year it was. I've got it was in the catalog, the Boston Acoustics catalog that year, but they basically took that SLA prototype that looked like an actual finished speaker, and they set it down in the speaker well in the back window of the car, and took the picture and moved it and took the picture, moved it and took the picture, because I had set up for 312s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then they photoshopped it all together, and it looked real. It absolutely looked real.
I don't know if they photoshopped it, Chuck, because I don't think
Photoshop didn't exist. Well, they used something like that.
So they probably took the 3 pictures and tried to line it up the best they could to make it. But yeah, they did old school Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah. My cousin was into photos and stuff like that, so I learned a lot of that stuff when I was younger. But I don't know if they Photoshopped it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Computers back then were not what they are now.
Yeah.
You know, and I think so just off of that, you're going to be a guy that dealt with EQTs or something similar, right?
Yeah. You're talking about audio control stuff?
Audio control, right.
Yeah.
So have you looked at or are you familiar with what we have nowadays for DSP?
I'm familiar. I actually did a system for a friend of mine a couple of years ago using all Moscone stuff. And set it up with a computer, with a laptop. And it's, it's just, I wish I had all that back then. I really wish I had the access to that technology. It would have been very different business.
It's so the reason I asked that is because you and I understand this. I was talking with somebody one day, and we were talking about the old days of EQTs and EQS and 4XS crossovers and all of that stuff. But with the EQTs, you'd have to have a left and a right and a sub, or sometimes 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
And based on where we were, who the judges were, and, just different things about the event, whether it was really hot or if it was rainy and cold, whatever, we had these sheets of paper that were all my friends and I had taken, and we would trace on them and punch out all the holes and then draw pictures, draw the lines on them. And you would have to take a piece of paper out of a binder that was about this thick, or 2 of them, right? And go find, okay, it's this judge, we're in this place. And you go and you overlay it, and you're changing all the settings right before you go into you're overlaying this on the EQ, and you're like making all the adjustments so that you get the best scores with that judge. And then you got to go back in and reset everything with another one to put it all to the right settings to get RTA flat. Right. And then you got to do it again to get SPL. Yeah. Mind you, you have like 5 minutes between events.
I didn't do too much when it came to competition stuff. Most of my installs were regular customers that wanted fun stuff. And I did a big job for a guy at a Camaro, a 91 Camaro. And I did some motorized stuff, the Alpine pieces that came out, and I motorized the back seat. I never really finished it.
Okay.
He just kind of ran out of money in the end. And
Amazing how that happened a lot.
Yeah. When they, it was adding up. It was really a lot of work and
Yeah.
a lot of fabrication. But most of the stuff I liked to do was really nice systems that fit in the car, that gave the client what they were looking for, not necessarily what a judge was looking for.
Right.
And do it in a way that didn't really do too much to the car, so they could trade the car in or sell the car.
Okay.
So,
yeah, trying to do like kind of an OEM integration style.
Yeah, but a little beyond that.
Yeah. That was always my favorite too, and it still is to this day, of playing with stereo systems and getting somebody in their car, and the first 2 or 3 songs they listen to, and you watch them, and like I can go back. I was working for a shop here in Corpus when I first moved back, and it was like 2015 when I built this truck, and we took it to a show. And we're demoing it, and this guy got in and he wanted to listen to this specific song. And I was like, yeah, pull it up. We'll plug it in, whatever. And so we get him all set up and he's listening. And he's, I'm demoing this from with the listener in the driver's seat. And so I'm sitting in the passenger seat and I'm just watching him. And he literally had tears in his eyes and his hair was standing up. And he goes, I think that might have been the greatest birthday gift I could ever have gotten in my entire life.
Wow. Nice.
And he was like, can I listen again? Yeah, listen to it again. And so he just sat there, and it was a Red Hot Chili Peppers song. And I hate to admit this, but he pulled it off of YouTube, which is not a great format, but for him, it did what it needed to.
Created the experience.
Right. And it's that connection. It's making, I've mentioned this for years, talking to people. What we do, it's not about, I mean, at least for a lot of us, it's not about just making a loud stereo. We did this because we love music. I'm sure you can kind of see I've got guitars and drums, and my whole life is music. I grew up in music. I've been playing since I was 6 on those things back there. But I got into the car stereo because I love music. And so every time you make somebody connect with a song, and it could be one song, but they make that connection in a way that they've never heard it before or felt it before, and it's all over forever. Like they will never be able to live without trying to refine connections to their music.
Oh, once you're right. And once you've put something in their car that presents them that music in a way they've never heard it before, that's a client for life. And I still have forever. And that was one of my favorite things, was the people that I worked with. I had a lot of return clients. People kept coming back every couple of years with a new car.
Yep.
And I got to be very good friends with a lot of those people. And I've said this before, everybody that I know today is a result of car stereo, and everything that I have was a result of car stereo. And it was so much fun. It was so creative, and creating those relationships that last forever was
right. Fantastic. Yeah. I have clients that, I don't do retail install anymore. And really most of what I do anymore is just taking care of guys that I've done work for over the last several years. But most of the guys that I've done work for are people that I went to high school with. They're the dads that have all the money in the world now, that we were all broke as kids and, couldn't do a lot. But now, one of the last retail jobs I did was an $18,000 stereo system for a guy I went to high school with.
That's awesome.
Dude, it just, and it wasn't, again, it's not one of those ones where it's crazy built. We actually bought an enclosure from MTI, and we just put really good gear and spent the right amount of time putting it together. But we bought he picked out some really high end gear, and we made it sound amazing. And that's the way we do stuff nowadays. But now it's just, I enjoy getting to watch people learn how to do some of that. I mean, it's done on a level that's so much easier nowadays and so repeatable for that experience that DSP changed how we do things. So
yeah, DSP changed, and the equipment they have in the shops now.
Yes.
Made all the difference in the world. You know, we were everything back in my day was jigsaws, MDF, and Bondo, and
and now we're using plastics and composites and metal and lasers and CNCs and welders and I mean, so think about like back in your day an RTA, right? The RTA from Audio Control was like this big huge monster.
Oh yeah.
And now their RTA is in a box about this big and about this tall. And it's an RTA, an oscilloscope, a polarity tester, a voltmeter, SPL meter. It's everything.
And
all
a
in
PlayStation
one
too.
Yeah. And a hard drive because it stores music. So yeah, it's crazy to see the technology that we have now versus then.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot of fun now.
Yeah.
Not that it wasn't fun back then, but
I think 80s and 90s was probably the best era for car audio. And that's just from an outsider's perspective because I got in early 2000s, but from what I hear, 80s and 90s car audio was like, heaven.
Yeah. It was great. It was a lot of fun. It really was. It was the most enjoyable job I've ever had, for sure.
I think what led to that, Elias, is it was kind of very new. I mean, there was car stereo back into the 70s and stuff.
Sure.
Where there was some stuff, but big amplifiers and big subwoofers and multiple subwoofers and these, there were companies that were, everything that was coming out back then was it was either very unique or innovative in some way, and it was new.
Everything was new. It was all just becoming mainstream in the 80s. People were just, CD players just came out. That made a huge difference in sound quality, and the big amplifiers were just coming out, and speakers that could handle the power, and people were willing to just like in anything, people are willing to spend the money to have the coolest, neatest thing or the best thing.
Right.
And that was, it was a good time to be in the business. It really was.
It really, really was. It was, I remember talking with somebody about it a few years ago. Well, I guess more than a few years ago, but they asked a group of us, what was the difference about car audio in like the 90s versus early 2000s and on. And I remember IASCA and USAC and stuff like that. But, IASCA was the one that most of us competed in. IASCA, you would go to the lanes at these competitions, and especially like world finals, right? And you would see these elaborate systems and a lot of what was in those cars, especially like the pro cars, the Gary Biggs, the Mark Eldridge, the Scott Bualdas, the Larry Chidgeners, all those guys, Harry Kimura, all of them. What they had in their car wasn't what you could buy off the shelf. It looked like it, but it wasn't it. And all of that design and engineering was a trickle-down effect. So all these ideas that guys had for their cars to be better in competition eventually made its way down to some version of a retail product. Not everyone, but a lot of it, right? A lot of those ideas.
There was a lot of experimental stuff.
Yes.
That manufacturers that never got in. Marantz, which is a big home stereo company. Marantz had car stereo briefly.
Yeah.
And I did some beta testing for them, and they had some really innovative ideas. They had, I forgot now how many bands. They had equalizers built into head units back then. Nobody had anything like that.
That would have been very unique.
Yeah. Yamaha had car stereo back then.
Yamaha, Sherwood,
right.
Yeah. So, then they were like, well, what happened? Well, IASCA went through a lot of change and got, changed hands, presidents, and then it got bought. And when IASCA changed, like late 90s, early 2000s, there wasn't so much of that drive to develop from the lanes, manufacturers became more focused on advertising, and it was a marketing driven development then, and that's what it's been forever since then. Like, Elias can attest to this. We've and you probably remember these days of people coming in going, "Oh, I don't want anything competition grade or quality or anything like that." Nobody today builds any amount of competition specific vehicles that's doing full blown retail. Like, we can build cars that can compete easily, but we don't build I couldn't name a single shop of all the shops I know of that builds any number of competition oriented vehicles on a regular basis. They might build one here and there, or they might take one that they've built and turn it into one, but it's not like back then where people would come in and drop their car off for 6, 8, 12, 14 weeks, a year, whatever, and a check and go, call me when it's done.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
People used to seek it out. That used to be a goal,
Yeah. Yeah. They drive across country, or, how many people drove to Gary Biggs to have him build their car?
Yeah.
And it would sit because part of his job was to compete. So he wasn't working on them full time. But yeah, that happened all the time. Guys all over the country building cars that were just competition cars.
Yeah.
I was on YouTube the other day looking at Manville Smith's was it Celica, or it was some sort of like Toyota, but he's like showing it off. It's like I don't know what the timestamp was for the build itself, but he's like taking off panels, showing off like an array of speakers, taking off another panel, more speakers. I'm like, so much product in such a small car. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. It was a way different time back then.
Look at the fabrication. It's like, it looked like it was done like, not too far off than what we're at now, but I mean, the fabrication looked pretty good, pretty damn good.
Yeah. I mean, execution level. I mean, when you talk quality of execution, if you were in a good place back then, that wasn't uncommon.
Yeah.
You had a lot more shops that didn't execute at that level, and a lot of guys that couldn't execute at that level because a lot of the router techniques and fiberglass and some of this other stuff, it just was beyond a lot of places. You had to have somebody that really knew how to do a lot of that stuff.
There was another car that I was looking at that, like, it was a van that just like basically like opened up like a claw. I forget the name of it. I was watching it on YouTube. It's like the amplifiers were inside and like this contraption like motorized down, like open.
And then it opened this way. I remember there was the one. It slid. It was like an octagon kind of shape.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And then you open the back doors of the van and it slid out, and the whole thing just kind of came out like this and stood there. I don't remember it opening up, but maybe it did.
Opened up. I thought it opened. It may have, but
maybe. But then you got guys like
who was the guy at Alpine that built all the really crazy Steve Brown. There you go.
He's still with Alpine.
Is that right? Yeah. He did a lot of really crazy looking stuff back in the day.
Yeah, him and Chris Yotto and Jason Digos and Gary Bell. Yeah, all those guys, man. I remember there used to be a forum, back when the days of internet forums. We used to have a forum called the 12 Volt Insider, and I remember Chris Yotto got dubbed the Chuck Norris of car audio on that forum, because he just, he was for the 2000 era, early 2000s, the guy was just amazing at what he did. I think he went to work for 5 Axis, and I don't know where he is now. He may still be there. He may have moved on.
He's at Honda now.
Is he at Honda? Okay. But yeah, I mean, there's guys that have gone on from our industry to designing parts for manufacturers.
Yeah.
Like car manufacturers. It's crazy what they're doing. So it's interesting to talk to someone that remembers all of those old.
You mentioned that to get a big system in a car meant it was a big system. I mean, these days you can get a 6-channel amp with plenty of power to run a full system or an 8-channel amp or 7, whatever, and it's got DSP built in. But back then, if we wanted to build something big, it was, 3 or 4 big amplifiers. It was, a lot of speakers, at least 2 sets of separates, and at least a couple of 10s to get a system that would really put out some volume and give the customer what they wanted. And that, if they wanted something fancy, it was, like you said, it was a lot of composite work. I did a lot of fiberglass work and a lot of woodwork and a lot of painting and to give people what they wanted.
Kick panels.
Oh yeah. I made a lot of kick panels.
I made a lot of ugly kick panels because everybody wanted them cheap. Nobody wanted to pay to do them right, or the shops I worked for weren't of that level,
Yeah.
I probably wasn't either, to be honest. But kick panels, Q forms when they started making those.
I remember those. Yep.
But when you talk about,
I remember Meyer Emco. Every time I would walk in there, because I was across the street, they were always doing footwell sub enclosures in the Lambos.
Yeah. So you're local.
Yes, I am.
Which Meyer Emco did you walk into?
Bailey's.
Yeah, that's where I was.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so that had the big shop, and there was always, I used to do these subwoofer boxes for Porsche 911s all the time, and they were expensive, but they were fully fiberglass molded to the floor of the car, and they would take the seat cushion in the back and make a mold of the bottom of that so it would sit in the top. And basically, when they were in the car, it didn't look like there was 2 10s in the back in subwoofer boxes, and you could unplug them and take them out if you had somebody taller, if you wanted to put someone in the back seat. And
oh wow,
yeah, that's where I met Mark. I was across the street at Tweeter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we did a lot of the fiberglass boxes and the NSXs up in the footwells, and a lot of there was so much custom work.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
Well, back then everything had to be custom. I mean, there was no. I remember
there was no speaker spacers. You had to make everything. So
everything had to be made.
Yeah.
One of the biggest jobs I ever did, I did a Cadillac Baritz, an 86 or 85 Cadillac Baritz. So it was a Cadillac with a factory, I guess not technically factory. It was done at a dealer, but it was a convertible top that was done after the fact.
Right.
And this guy wanted so much stuff done to it. In those old Cadillacs, the headrests were like this big, right? And he wanted TVs in the back of his headrests. So I had to take everything off and remake the headrest so that it would extend back and go, basically go over the back of the seat so that it would hang down far enough that I could put a TV in it, and then go have new headrest covers made and what do we put in it? A Nintendo 64, I think is what it was.
Right.
But he didn't want to have to throw the cables through the middle. So I took the entire Nintendo apart and put the game slot and 2 of the controller plugs up front and the power switches and everything, and then extended cabling, wiring back to put a plug on each side next to the speaker in the back seat.
Right.
And then it was the Alpine CVA 1000 was the flip out screen at the time.
Yep.
And there wasn't an easy way to mod to get video in.
Oh, so
there was, but I couldn't find the good information on it, and I was afraid to turn his CVA up. So we put that in with the navigation and put the nav in the glove box. And then I built a center console with a TV up front, and the where the TV screen mounted, it folded down and held the cases for all the games and the DVDs.
Nice.
And then you put, but yeah, then down below it was like it went down and under, and that's where the game and the controls for everything were. But with everything we did to that car, I kind of guesstimated about 2.5 miles of wire we put in that vehicle.
Wow.
That was a lot.
Thinking outside the box was the name of the game, it's always been, and to do some of the stuff back then, we were really limited with the products that we had back then. A CVA 1000 was kind of a cool piece, but to get video in. I figured it out when they came in, and you were worried about burning up a CVA 1000, but I worked for a big company. So if it didn't work, I would just send it back and say defective. I took a CVA 1000 and I took it all apart so I could flush mount the screen in the dash of a Porsche. So it didn't flip out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, doing stuff like that, taking things apart and trying to figure out how can I make something interesting that doesn't exist, or how can I find something from another industry to help me. I took in my own car. So I was saying my own car is my favorite install. I took a home audio remote control that was programmable, and this was a monochromatic screen, 3x5, not very big, but you could arrange the buttons and write on the buttons anything you wanted. And it was an infrared remote, and I was able to integrate that with some home automation equipment. And that's all behind the back seat of my car, and that runs everything in the car. And so it'll roll the windows up and down. I made the mirrors power. It'll operate the mirrors, the lights, the heater, and the stereo. Turns my nitrous on and off, my line lock on and off. And that was 2000, 2001 when I did that. They didn't have touchscreens in cars back then. But I was figuring out how to make something work in my car that would work off a touchscreen, and it still works.
That's amazing. That's the cool stuff, man. I love all of that.
Yeah.
Figure it out was the name of the game, huh?
Yep.
Pardon me?
Outside of the box.
Yeah, I think outside the box. Just something different. When you mentioned headrest monitors, when those LCDs first came out, there was really no way to mount them on a headrest. They came with these clamps that would go on the post and put it behind. And I had the idea to make a metal box, basically just fold up a simple metal box that I could attach to the metal structure inside the headrest, pull the cover back over it, and then I could cut the cover and fold it into my metal box. And my screens I just double side them into the back of the metal box, and they were flushed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that trimmed it out. There was no trim rings. It was, just a flush mount.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked for a shop in Denver that one of our other stores, I'm not going to name names, they worked on a football player's wife's vehicle and put headrests in her Lexus with hot glue. What happens to hot glue in the summer in a car? Right. She comes out from a store like shopping, and both of her headrests are laying, hanging from the cords almost on the floor, and there's the black mess down the back of her leather seats.
Yeah.
Did not go over well.
Yeah.
Did not go over well.
So obviously we have a lot of fun car audio moments that we could talk all night about, but I know this may be a little bit different to you now, Chuck, but I know there's got to be some sort of influence from then to now that you can probably share with us. So for all the current industry guys and gals, what are some words of encouragement from Chuck that would motivate those to keep pursuing industry awards, or if they haven't done so, why should they partake in industry awards?
Well, industry awards are a reflection of your commitment. And I think the people that are committed, to learn, and whether that's, when I say learn, I don't mean just going to Knowledge Fest. I mean learn how your hands work. You learn how to mix the paint. Learn how to weld. That'll change everything you do. All these things will change how you install, and that's a commitment. And my commitment was, at one point, that was 7 days a week in the install bay, excited to learn if this was going to work or not. If I make this motorized piece, can I make it reliable? Can I make it strong enough to work? If I want to paint this plastic, can I make the paint stick to this plastic? I mean, back then we didn't have a paint specifically for plastic, so you had to come up with an answer, right? You had to figure out what products work. There was no crossover to car stereo that anybody knew about. You had to go find a product, just like my touchscreen. I had to figure out how to make something work. So it's a commitment to learning. You got to learn and do And when you get these awards, that just lets you know that you're good at it. You've learned a lot, and now you've become an expert.
I love that. Commitment.
That might be one of my favorite answers ever.
Commitment.
I didn't think I'd come up with that easily.
I have one other one that I bring up a lot, but I don't know why we bring this up all the time, but I can't ever let it go. Rick Kojan, who works for Sony, was standing on stage in Las Vegas this last February, and he made the comment, a lot of people talk about our industry awards being a popularity contest. Oh, you got the award because people know who you are. But that's a fact. I mean, that's
sure.
It's a fact that people know who you are, right? But his words were, this isn't a popularity contest. If you want to win, this is a work your ass off contest. And I think that goes to what you said. It's a commitment.
Yep.
You have to commit to want to be better at your craft, whether it's install, whether it's business ownership, whether it's a sales guy or a vendor trying to present the best products, whatever the case may be, you have to want to be better to grow.
You have to want to be inspired. You have to be inspired. You want to be excited about it, and you want to go spend the extra time. You want to take the chance on the whatever it is you're trying to make work.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, try again, figure something else out, and seek out help. Don't be afraid to go ask somebody that might know more than you about a piece of electronics or a particular product or technique.
Right. And the thing for that is we live in an age now where that information and that ability to reach out is global.
Yeah.
Right from this guy right here.
Yeah.
It's global. 100% global. So there's no excuse for it anymore.
Yeah. When I started, a lot of the shops in the area were not friendly to each other. If you went into one
Very
shop,
much so. Yeah.
Yeah, when you went into one shop, they would talk trash about the other shop, and vice versa. And I never did that. I didn't think that was helpful, and I didn't think it doesn't make you look good to the client.
Nope. It does. It does. There's no benefit to doing that at all.
So I was always friendly with the other guys in the other shops, and I think that was a big help in learning.
Yeah.
If I had a question about a product, I'd ask the rep. I mean, anybody that's installed these that's had this problem, or anybody that's tried this? He goes, "Oh, this guy down in Pennsylvania did it." I'd call them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were friendly. If you're friendly, they're friendly.
Most often, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very seldom is it one-sided. Chuck, thank you.
Thank you. You guys inspired me to go through some of my old pictures and put a bunch of them on my Instagram page now.
I'm going to be looking for it.
Yeah, I will.
I'm going to be looking for it.
I will definitely post some of that stuff from that part of my life that's hidden away. I forgot about.
When I start seeing some of that, I'll throw a link up on Facebook to people to go look for you.
Yeah,
it'll be fun to watch. That
home remote control, integration into the car that has me intrigued.
Oh yeah, that was back. I mean, that was over 20 years ago, and it's just a wall of relays and wire and stuff, but it works. It actually works.
That's awesome.
That is so much fun. Chuck, I can't say thank you enough for wanting to come on and participate in our little podcast here, and hopefully, as we hope with every one of these, that we inspire somebody to do something better. Whatever better is.
Whatever better is, that's right. Figure it out.
Yeah. Again, whatever better is, be better. Be better than who you were yesterday, because that's the only person that any of us need to compete with.
Yeah. Commit to be better.
That's right. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys reaching out. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, Chuck.
No worries. All right, man. We will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Wow.
Commit to be better.
Commit, dude. That might need to be a new slogan. commit to be better. That might be something we need to talk about.
There's impact behind that, and I hope that that's felt with others as well.
Yeah, I hope so.
That was exciting.
Fun.
It's
I feel like we could have gone a lot longer.
There's a lot of history that you guys can always talk about. That it's always interesting to see like how you can connect with it, and like when we had Jeff Smith on, the connection there too. And there's so much that you can like extract out of that.
Yeah,
it's strong, you know.
Yeah,
and I love it.
I feel like like we could just talk and talk and talk, but I feel like it'd only be interesting for some people. Knowledge Fest next week. We're what? We're May 11th. May 11th. Dude, my kids have birthdays this week. Holy cow. Christian turns 22. For any of you all that know my son, that have followed my son through the years, he turns 22 tomorrow. It feels like he was this big working in a GTO not that long ago, you know. Felt like yesterday he was building a display for Escort. Just
time flies.
Time flies, man. My daughter will be 11. She's a horror flick addict now. Knowledge Fest Orlando. And then what? Summer.
Indy
comes up in what, June? Yeah, I don't go to Indy. The Diamond and Serwin Vega don't do Indy, so I don't go. I'm gonna be spending my summer with my daughter. So
there you go.
I got a lot of stuff going on for that.
See everyone next week. Get our learn on.
I think maybe later this month we can talk about the spinoff. Yeah?
Yeah.
Start building some hype for our spinoff.
Yep.
I think so. That'll be fun. That's going to be a lot of fun, actually.
Yep.
It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, man. Well, anything else? Anything fun, new, interesting?
No, this was great. I'm excited for this one.
Me too. All right, man. I'm just sitting here like, do I have anything else? I don't really have anything else.
Later, and then wish that we had, you know.
Yeah, I'll be like, man, I should go back and hit him up, and we'll cut it in or something. But I was trying to think if I had anything new on music or anything. If you haven't seen John Wick 4, go see it. It's long, but it's worth it. That's about the best I got. Gonna go do Knowledge Fest and then spend an evening nerding out in Star Wars land.
There you go. We will see you next week.
All right, man. Have a safe trip. Once again, thanks to Chuck Hamly for coming on with us. And our quest continues to find some of the pre-2005 guys that we have not located yet. Onward and upward.
Anyone or are that person, reach out.
Yes. Anybody. I need to like go throw these names up there again or actually throw them up in the group and see if anybody can give me some contact information for like Brian Pendergrass or Bob Schumacher or Greg Schwartz or Scott Seeley or John Yorkis. I know somebody that might know where John is. I need to talk to Pete Riker and see if he knows where John's at.
We'll find out.
We'll find out, man. All right, guys. Thank you again for joining us. Where are they now? The Industry Awards specialists or finalists. Sorry, not specialists. Finalists. Top 12s, winners, top 20s, top 5s, whatever they are. They're coming. We're getting to them all progressively. I think we have a good one if we can get him on. You got to follow up on that one.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. I don't know if he's going to go. I'm still skeptical as to if we will get him on because I feel like he's just being on camera might be a little rough for him.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe we just put him on screen with a black veil in front of him and
not tell him. Yeah.
And not tell him. All right, man. We'll talk to you soon. We'll see everybody soon. Thank you.